Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. My name is Ahmad Reza Islan bin Ahmad Faisal. I am an alumni of SMK Abdurrahman Talib Kuantan, and today I will be explaining the infamous Soalan Guli from SPM 2024 AddMaths Paper 2. So first and foremost, let's all read the question. Diagram 3 shows a symmetrical tube such that points A and B are on the same level. A marble is released from point A and moves through the tube towards point B until it stops instantaneously for the first time at point C. The marble will move back and forth through the tube until it stops completely at point O. The marble stops instantaneously for the second time at point D and stops instantaneously for the third time at point E. The distance traveled by the marble from point A to point C to point D, and subsequent distances are in the same ratio. The total distance traveled by the marble from point A to point C and then from point C to point D is 629 over 4 cm. The distance traveled from point D to point E is 4,913 over 80 centimeters. If the marble takes 1 minute to stop completely at point O, determine whether the average speed of the marble exceeds 10 cm per second or not. Show your calculation. So this is a very long question and it's worth 10 marks. Thus, we have to take things step by step. So step 1, we have to keluarkan all the important information that the question gives us. So what does it say first? The question says the distance traveled by the marble from point A to point C to point D, and subsequent distances are in the same ratio, meaning that the distance traveled, the ratio of the distance traveled AC to CD is equal to all subsequent ratios or all subsequent distances, meaning that they have a common ratio, which means that this is a geometric progression. Geometric progression. So now that we know that this is a geometric progression, now we have to find all the necessary values, mainly what is the value of A and what is the value of R, A representing the first term and R representing the common ratio. Next, let's keluarkan more of the information that is given to us. The total distance traveled by the marble from point A to point C and then from point C to point D is 629 over 4 centimeters, meaning distance traveled from AC and the distance traveled from CD is 629 over 4 centimeters. Next, the distance traveled from point D to point E is 4,913 over 80 cm. So, DE is 4,913 over 80 cm. Now, we have to express all of this just like we would a geometric progression. So, AC, as it is the first time the marble is released, is the first term, or otherwise known as A. So, A plus CD is the second time it goes through the tube, thus it is the second term AR. So A plus AR is 629 over 4. Next, DE is the third term, meaning that it is AR square. AR square is 4,913 over 80. And now we have to figure out the unknown values being A and R. And now you can see we have two simultaneous equations with two constants, sorry. So first things first, in my opinion, it's much easier to find the value of R first using the substitution method. So let's make a third equation. A equals, move R square to the bottom number, the denominator. So 4,913 over 80 R square, because 80 times R square is 80 R square. This is the third equation, and now we are able to substitute the third equation into the first equation to 1. So then we can just get along with substituting. 4,913 over 80 R square plus AR, thus 4,913 over 80 R square times R equals 629 over 4. So you could potong terus this becomes 4,913 over 80r. However, I find it much easier to leave it as is and just make the bottom the same, which is 80r squared. So 4,913 plus 4,913r over 80r squared equals 629 over 4. And now for simultaneous equations, we get rid of the bottom numbers, so which would make it, so we move this 4 to the left, which will make it that up. So 4 times 4,913 plus 4,913r equals, and now we also move 80r squared to the right, which makes it times, so 80r squared times 629. Now we can just do simple multiplication using your scientific calculator. 4 times 4,913 is 19,652. So 19,652 plus 19,652 r is equals 80 times 629. 80 times 629, 50,320 square. So now we can move this equation all to the right to get a quadratic equation. So it would look like 50,320 square minus 19,652r minus 19,652 equals 0. Now, very important for AddMaths, whenever you have a quadratic equation like this, you must always express it in the simplest terms. And the easiest way to do that I have found is take the first number, 50,320 over 19,652. So, once you press the equals button, you should get 740 over 289. So that is the simplest term of both numbers. So 740 r squared minus 289 r minus 289 equals 0. So now you can just put the formula into your scientific calculator using the polynomial function. 740 r squared minus 289 r minus 289, and you should get two values. So you must always remember to factorize, otherwise you don't get the mark for the simultaneous equation. So which would be 20r minus 17 and 37r plus 17, yes, equals 0. Thus the two possible values of r are r equals 17 over 20, and r equals negative 17 over 37. Now, we can immediately eliminate the negative number, as it is impossible for a distance to be a negative value. Thus, we can immediately knock out negative 17 over 37, and thus we are left with r equals 17 over 20. Now that we have found the value of r, we can find the value of a. So we can just take r, so substitute r equals 17 over 20 into our third equation to get the value of a. Substitute r into 3. Thus we should get a equals 4,913 over 80 r squared, which makes it 17 over 20 square. Thus, putting that into the calculator gets us 4,913 over 80, 17 over 20 square, gets us 85, which means that the distance traveled from A to C is 85 centimeters. Now, we are still not done yet, as we have only found the values of a and r. Now, the question asks us to find the speed. Oh no, sorry. First, we have to find the sum to infinity. Now, why the sum to infinity? Well, we we have to find the total distance traveled by this marble from A to C, then C to D, from D to E, until the distance gets so small that it is basically zero. That is basically what the sum to infinity is. When the common ratio is less than 1, the value becomes so small that it becomes zero. So we can just use the sum to infinity formula. I highly recommend for questions like these. Sometimes they just give out marks for writing out the formulas. So A over 1 minus R. So we can substitute our values, 85 over 1 minus 17 over 20, which should get us 85 over 1 minus 17 over 20. 17 over 20. You should get 1,700 over 3 centimeters. Now we're still not done. This is the value of the total distance traveled by the marble when it is released from point A. Now we have to find speed, because the question is, does the average speed exceed 10 centimeters per second? Thus, we need to find its speed. Now, the total time taken is 1 minute. So 1 minute times 60 is 60 seconds. Thus, the speed is 1,700 over 3 divided by the time taken, which is 60 seconds, is, so 1,700 over 3 divided by 60, 85 over 9, but because this is speed, I recommend writing it down in decimal points. So 9.444 centimeters per second. Now be careful, because we're still not done yet, because now we actually have to write a conclusion to the question, because the final question is determine whether the average speed of the marble exceeds 10 centimeters per second or not. And we have already shown that it's not, but just in case, I also like to write a conclusion. So I like to write my conclusions like this. Thus, the average speed of the marble does not exceed 10 centimeters per second. And also I like to write a hashtag next to the answer so that the examiner knows where to look. And thus, we have solved the problem, we have shown our calculations, and we have written the conclusion. Thank you very much for listening, and I wish you the best of luck during your SPM and maths examinations.